So before we get started, I'd like to once again address something going on in the world outside of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is today's announcement that there will now be the Best Popular Picture category at the Oscars. Before we get into it, just my quick thoughts on the Oscars. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're pointless and they're stupid, because ultimately, we all want to feel recognized. We all want to feel like we have the respect of our peers and those we consider superior, and that we are honored for our efforts. And simply to say that, well, if you make a lot of money at the box office, that's all that matters, and if the audience leaves with a happy face, that's what's important. No, it's not. I mean, it is important, but ultimately we want to be recognized for the actual talents, not just someone's quick reaction or monetary gain. We want that the people who recognize art and have spent their whole lives judging art see something special in what you create, and that is ultimately what the Oscars represent. It is the ultimate elites in filmmaking taking a moment to recognize those who's accomplished something this year. However, the problem with the Oscars is all too often than not, it just sort of serves as a way for the Hollywood elites and a lot of these really just old, crusty white people, I'm just going to say it, that's what it predominantly is, pretty much just kind of honoring the things that they like and never really branching out into anything different. And ultimately, that is why this new category has been created. It's not to really recognize other films, it's just to throw other films a bone. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that popular films don't always get nominated, nor do just because something is popular means it deserves to be acclaimed or accolades. Trust me, if that was the case, then the Transformers films are basically god-tier level quality, and they're not. Basically, like, even this year, you had movies like Get Out and The Shape of Water. Movies that either seem weird or too genre-specific to get nominated, get the nods. And I'm not going to sit here and say that every Oscar movie is unfun or not enjoyable to the masses. I actually had a lot of fun with The Post. Don't get me wrong, I don't give a fuck about Phantom Thread, but I actually had a lot of fun with that movie. Yeah, which might be a weird thing to say because it's about a very sad subject. Anyways, but ultimately those films don't get nominated a lot, and I remember last time a movie got nominated that normally doesn't, and that being Beauty and the Beast, an animated picture for Best Picture. It wasn't long after they created the Best Animated Picture category. Their claim was that they wanted the art of animation to get noticed more, but in reality it was to keep this not our level thing away from the things that they hold sacred and they hold dear. And that's what it feels like has happened here. They want to sort of keep that sort of genre stuff that is quote-unquote for the masses, which is where the term I often feel like I hear when talking about that kind of stuff. They want to keep that out. They want to keep that away from what they consider to be true art and true cinema, and this is just throwing that genre a bone. And that's where this is going. Maybe something like Black Panther will win an Oscar, but it's going to be a category that's just designed so that way they don't have to take it too seriously. Something like Logan belonged on that Best Picture list, and it isn't there because as far as they're concerned, comic book movies don't matter. Something like The Dark Knight is considered a great exception, but let's be real here, there's been a lot of other comic book movies over the years that honestly deserve better recognition than they get. Now, don't get me wrong, most comic book movies are just fun popcorn flicks, and that's fine. But again, you're going to sit here and tell me that something like Black Panther doesn't deserve to be a little bit more recognized than simply, here's your own special category. It's like when you have the slow group at like a cross-country meet, which that is a real thing, people. So that's it for that. Just watch. 10, 15 years from now, you're going to see the equivalents of things like The Boss Baby and Ferdinand get nominated for that sort of thing, as opposed to actual art pieces like the equivalent of things like Your Name, or even something like Lego Batman deserves it better than this bullshit. Moving on to Yu-Gi-Oh! Very quickly, Yusaku versus another one of the people just randomly using Gokis, just so they could show off another bad Goki Link monster. I like this one better because we got Firewall Dragon. It feels like a big fuck you that the best Firewall Dragon gets is a cameo for a pointless duel that just exists to fill the running time. That is bullshit, but it is cool to see Firewall Dragon use his effect properly. I don't know, it's just the fact that Yusaku never uses this card in exchange for just forgettable code talkers and boring link 2s that don't do anything. It's just sort of a weird thing to have now be the time he uses Firewall Dragon, and it once again sort of reinforces that the people doing the duels don't actually understand what makes duels interesting to begin with. However, I will not lie, it was fun to see him actually use it effectively with the special summon effect and the bounce back effect. Though that being said, I kind of saw it coming when the guy was like, "How are you going to get over my 4,700 attack point monster?" I'm like, dude, card effects. Those exist. This is a world where Mirror Force exists, and you think that? Like, Jesus Christ, like, good lord, some of the dialogue they give these people sometimes. Moving on to the main sort of meat of the episode, being target demographic versus Blood Shepherd. I feel there's really two ways to look at how this went. The first is that it is pure bullshit, and the second, we'll get to that. But first up, the pure bullshit angle. The bullshit angle here is that at first glance, this was turning into a really interesting moral conflict. And that being that as much as, I'll just use his name for this, as much as Homura wants to move on, as much as he is trying to get revenge, and as much as he wants to be a hero, and as much as he has conquered his demons in the past, they never go away. That is a very real thing that people who go through trauma go with. The fact of the matter is, when you go through something extreme like that, it's probably always going to follow you. It's always going to be with you, and you will always be dealing with it, and it will always evolve as you go through life, and how you have to deal with it will always change as well. That is reality, and when it looked like they were bringing that reality into it, it was really good. I actually thought it was clever how they sort of wove the results of that duel from a while back into what was going on now. Again, sort of reinforcing what I just said, that idea that he'll always be an imperfect person and he just has to learn to live with that. That's really cool and a really good message, and it really brings the character down to a more human level that it feels like Yu-Gi-Oh's been lacking lately. Unfortunately, they then elect to destroy all of this by having Homura be, "Oh, I was just acting." This is when he turns back into being target demographic. And it really sucks. For a second there, I thought it was just a lie. I thought it was really just they're trying to throw one over at Blood Shepherd while he sort of regains his cool. But no, look at the music, listen to the music, look at the rest of the episode. It is very clear that the idea is he just magically got over all his problems from one duel. Yep, that's how getting over one of the most traumatic things a child could go through, and just having a life of just getting shitted on by the universe, just all it takes is winning a fucking children's card game. There is nothing else you need to do to grow or change. You are perfect, target demographic. You are Jesus, and we want our viewers to be just like you. So please keep buying our products, kids, because you can be perfect like Yusaku or whoever the fuck this loser is. There's a good chance that's what's actually going on here. And that sucks that they gave up something like that for a really cheap thing. However, and maybe it's just my lack of a desire to want to continue being angry at a franchise I do genuinely love, maybe in a way this is supposed to be set up for things to come. And it kind of seems that way too, although we've seen that before and been let down by this show, because when you look at what happens next, you see that the duel ends with no real conclusion. They're both at a point where it could go either way, which means that they will have to inevitably duel again, which means there's a rivalry here, and there's actually an interesting moral conflict when you think about it between these two. On the one hand, you have Blood Shepherd, who will not let go of the past. He will not get over his anger and his hatred for AI and the world. He even says it, "I hate duelists like you." What does that mean? Well, this is after Homura says that, "I got over it, I moved on, I'm living with it, I'm trying to be better, and I just sort of controlled it." I also like the fact that the memory looking into technology is not perfect, that if you are aware of what's happening to you, you can sort of trick it. I think that is a very nice way of circumventing the problem of how insane this technology is. You could even make the argument maybe this technology is illegal and Blood Shepherd shouldn't even have it. So there's that. But yeah, I think there's definitely an argument to be made here that it's this idea of the character who won't get over anything, who is so consumed by his hatred and his anger for what the world has done to him. He just takes it out on everyone who gets in his way. And on the other side, you have this guy who has gotten over it, who is trying to make a better life for himself and move on, and what that can sort of create when the two sort of butt heads. I feel this is the conflict that should be going on between Yusaku and Soulburner, between the two mains, but we're not getting that, and I think this could be a legitimately interesting way to go. I'm still annoyed that Soulburner, or target demographic, just sometimes feels like fortune cookie answers, like when he faced Go and when he faced Aoi, but I'm willing to believe that right now this is trying to go in an interesting direction, and maybe you think that too, or maybe it's just going to fall flat like a lot of what Vrains tries to do. But let's be positive for right now, because we got to be positive about something in life. Anyways, tell me what you thought of this episode below, which side you fall on, and if this is really meant to go somewhere. And as for this week's TCG question of the week, so Shadows of Valhalla is actually shaping up to be a great set. There's, of course, the Ash reprint now being a super and has finally really calmed the price down, as that card, after it's got its Kaiba reprint, just shot right back up. So it's nice to see it finally get budget. You get Invoked reprints. I think there's Secret Rare Twin Twister. This is actually a really cool set. But some people are worried, what does this mean for the Megatins? Like, does this mean that the Megatins might not be as great, with it seeming like a lot of cards destined to get hit, like, say, Firewall Dragon and potentially Trickstar and Goki stuff on there as well? What does this mean? Will the Megatins fail? Are you worried about that? Are you just happy to get Shadows of Valhalla and have the set be important? Because I kind of like the fact that the set has a little bit for everybody. Though it is weird now that we have a huge reprint set and then another huge reprint set at the end of the month, this after another huge reprint set with Battles of Legend. But hey, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! For you. Tell me what you thought about that in the comments section below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and, well, I guess we'll see what happens in the Megatins sooner or later.